cause de cette mauvaise température, mais il est là. It's great to have you here. We saw the snowstorm. We said, oh, great. You know, he just might not make it. But here you are.
Yeah, we made it.
What a trooper.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you back in the studio. And I know that we're going to talk about all the tours and stuff. And every time that you come into the studio, I just realized that, gee, you know, Johnny must think, what's with this girl? I mean, we've had these really heavy, deep conversations. So I just said, why don't we start off with something a little lighter? Like, what's the nicest thing that's just happened to you in the recent while? I mean, I don't know. And you've been traveling, you've been touring. What's a funny experience that's happened to you on stage?
Where was it? It was in Ottawa, in Canada, in fact. We went out after the show and went to a bar and had a few drinks. We rocked up about 4 o'clock in the morning and we got into the lift. It was myself, my manager, and the keyboard player.
Yep.
And as the lift was going up, I pressed the emergency button by mistake and the lift stopped. And there was a phone, and we phoned down to the reception to say, look, the lift stopped. And she said, I'm sorry, I don't have a key. I'll have to call the fire brigade. So she phoned the fire brigade, and the fire brigade said, they're not interested in coming out this late, this time. They've got to speak to some person or other person. So we spent 2 hours in the lift from about 4 to 6 in the morning.
When did the panic turn to humor, though? It's like
well, we were very lucky because she was a very, very humorous person, actually. We had turns. And the mic, the phone was right at the bottom of the lift, so you had to lie down to talking to the phone. So each of us took turns lying down and talking into the phone. It was very funny, actually.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not even one of those things where you had to be there. I could just imagine you got to laugh at something like that. The last time, though, just to get back to a little bit of a serious note, the last time that you were in the studio was right when Nelson Mandela had been freed, and you had told me right then that you had the possibility of a meeting being set up for both of you to meet. And I was wondering if you had met him and how that meeting went.
No, I've been on tour for 9 months now.
So you hadn't...
I haven't, no.
You haven't had... I was watching the news last night, actually, and the situation in South Africa is a little, like, crazy right now again. Can you just comment a little bit on what's happening exactly and what this is a reflection of?
Essentially, it's the first time that the country has been allowed to express itself. So there are very many more tendencies, political tendencies, have suddenly grown up. So I think we're going to, you're talking about 6 or 7 political groupings which are slowly starting to coalesce, which is not what we thought would happen, but it's happening, and we have to deal with that. And that's everybody's shifting and trying to find space for themselves. In this process, it's occurring in a very, like in the East, in the Russian areas, it's occurring in a very, very depressed economic climate. We have, in the past, well, we were warned by the Commissioner of Police that we would have the biggest crime wave in South African history over this period because of the economic problems and compounded by the political problems. So it's a rough period.
It's pretty rough to watch also. It's quite amazing. I mean, it's happening in different parts of the world too. It's just a generally malaise time, I think, worldwide.
I think it's the patient is going to get worse before he gets better in that sense. And I think it's a worldwide phenomenon. There's going to be an economic recession, I think.
I think so.
And at the wrong time, because, the East, the South, South America, other countries who need some kind of economic support are not going to get it. And I think it's going to be the next 2 years are going to be critical for the world civilization, the planetary culture, because all these very positive, fragile elements that have emerged might collapse.
When we go to talk about your album right now, which of course I've spoken to you about before, I mean, one of the things that always amazes me in any kind of writing that I've ever read about you, and when I read the lyrics that you write, is the fact that you deal with very serious subjects, but always in a positive fashion. And that's not easy to do. I mean, I think it would be much easier to sort of go the other route and come out negatively and say, well, this is terrible and I think that this should be changed. But you never do that. And I'm wondering if you consciously set out to talk about difficulties and problems that are obvious in a positive fashion, if that was an intentional thing when you first started out writing.
I'm a serious person. There's a part of me that's very serious, obviously. Otherwise I wouldn't be dealing with these subjects. But I come from a tradition, an African tradition, and in the African tradition, music and critique is done with humor, and the idea of music, the role of music, is to reconstitute you, to make you human in a dehumanizing situation. So that what the music says, it says, step inside me, I will make you whole again. That's the role of music. So you'll find that the happiest music comes out of the saddest ghettos, because music's function is not to make you feel, you know, heavy and depressed. It's to lift you up. And if there is a critique, it's done in satire. It's done in humor.
And it works.
And it works. Sure. That's the tradition I come from. Anyway, yeah.
We're going to take a look at the title track video. I'm going to do a little bit of translation. Stick around. I got a whole bunch of other things to ask you. It's great to have you back in the studio. It's like a regular. We're going to set up a spot for you, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Johnny Clegg, bien sûr, de la formation Johnny Clegg and celui en tournée présentement. Go ahead.
African correspondent.
That's him.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Listen, we'll hook up a camera to you. It'll be permanent.
I'll put a big satellite dish in my garden and I'll send you messages.
Right on, we'll take them. Johnny Clegg qui est ici assez souvent avec nous. Alors on a dit qu'on va faire un petit coin ici à la Johnny Clegg. Elle dit pas de problème. Qui va nous envoyer des reportages un petit peu de partout. On dit pas de problème. On va les passer ici sur les ondes de Musique Plus. Présentement, il est en tournée de spectacle. On sait ça très bien. On a parlé un petit peu du fait que chaque fois que Johnny rentre en studio, je me suis rendu compte que c'est moi qui ai fait la plupart des entrevues avec Johnny. Et puis c'est toujours très sérieux. Puis j'ai dit on va commencer quand même d'une autre façon cette fois-ci. Parle-moi d'une expérience assez agréable que tu as vécue dernièrement. Il m'a parlé d'une petite anecdote assez intéressante à Ottawa lors de sa tournée présentement de spectacle où il était coincé dans un lift avec d'autres personnes. Il y avait personne qui pouvait les sortir. En tout cas, c'était très drôle parce qu'il fallait qu'il se penche d'une certaine façon pour prendre le téléphone. Et puis cette situation était quand même assez agréable. Pour retourner à la sortie de cet album qui bien sûr porte le titre de Cruel, Crazy, Beautiful World, à l'époque où Johnny était ici dernièrement, on a parlé bien sûr de ce micro-sillon et du fait que c'était juste la période où Nelson Mandela a été libéré. On sait bien que ça a été quand même quelque chose de très important pour tout le monde à travers le monde entier, mais en particulier pour quelqu'un comme Johnny Clegg, qui a toujours été quand même très très sensible à cet événement. Et à cette époque, il était supposé d'avoir une rencontre avec Nelson Mandela. Malheureusement, à cause du fait qu'il est présentement en tournée depuis 9 mois, il n'a pas eu l'occasion de rencontrer Nelson Mandela, mais ce sera peut-être pour une date au futur proche. Quand on parle un petit peu de cet album aussi, la chose qui m'a toujours intéressée et touchée de Johnny Clegg, c'est le fait qu'il écrit toujours des textes qui sont très importants, qui reflètent les problèmes de notre société, mais aussi dans une façon très positive. Et selon Johnny, il m'a laissé savoir que pour lui, le but de faire de la musique, c'est vraiment d'aider le monde à se sentir mieux, pas se sentir pire. Effectivement, quand on va parler des choses qui sont quand même assez graves dans le monde, il faut le faire avec un peu d'humour. Et malgré le fait que c'est une personne qui est très sérieuse, pour lui, l'humour a toujours été très important. Et le message fonctionne de cette façon. On a parlé de toutes sortes d'autres affaires. On va parler encore une fois de Johnny qui parle avec ses mains. Moi aussi, je parle avec mes mains, effectivement. On va voir la chanson titre de l'album Cruel, Crazy, Beautiful World avec Johnny Clegg de la formation Johnny Clegg and celui. Ne bougez pas, restez avec nous. On vous revient tout de suite après. Qui bien sûr ce soir va jouer avec la formation Saguenay au théâtre Saint-Denis. Bien sûr, ils ont déjà fait plusieurs spectacles à travers la merveilleuse province de Québec. This is like a pretty extensive tour. I mean, you were talking 9 months. You did do some other shows right now in Quebec. Talk to me in general just a little bit about the tour. How's that going?
Well, we have 3 shows left.
That's it.
That's it.
And ¿qué pasa afterwards?
Then I'm going straight home.
Yes.
Spending 4 to 5 months just
with the family.
My family, my friends, my network. We did Europe for 6 months, we did Japan, we did America, we did a Tracy Chapman tour, and then we've come back now to do a headline tour. This headline tour was 65 shows in 72 days.
That's incredible. I'm going to ask you a question that isn't really very original, but it just sort of astounds me. I mean, there are shows and then there are shows. I mean, you can go and you can see, like, for instance, the Tracy Chapman show, and you go and you watch her and it's wonderful, the sound that comes across and just the emotion of it all. But your show not only gives you that same thing, but the energy required, and just like, you know, the fact that you've got to be so mobile all the time, I mean, that alone is exhausting. And I'm just saying, you know, how come you've never considered lip syncing, you know, since you do all the dancing and stuff? I mean,
because
I'm just teasing
in Africa, let me tell you,
but really?
This is a real problem in South Africa.
Yes.
If you lip sync, you get stoned off the stage and bottled off the stage.
Are you serious?
Yes. So every artist who dances sings. There are no tapes, and if the audience think there's tapes, they will bottle you off the stage.
Oh, that's incredible. But that's very interesting. I was just wondering
because they paid to see the show. And they say, if we want to hear the cassette, we'll go home and put the cassette on. We don't want to hear a cassette. We want to see the artist sing and dance. And if that's what the artist does, if the artist doesn't dance, that's cool, but there must be no tapes at all.
How do you feel about this whole sort of scandal happening right now?
Well, I come from that tradition, so for me, you Because I come from a tough school.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's why I'm asking you, because, I mean, it can be done. I mean, there's the argument,
Yes.
of course, that you can't possibly put on a show like a Janet Jackson show or a Madonna show without implicating lip-syncing type thing, and obviously, I think that you guys are just as if not more so, and you manage.
Well, we move and we keep it intact.
What are you going to be doing during these 4 months? Obviously, I've got a feeling that, you know, you're going to spend a lot of time with your family needs, so you just said that, but
I'd like to go on holiday. I'd like to go,
really?
yeah, for
What would be the ideal holiday for you?
To the sea,
yeah.
in the sun, in the sand.
Just, and you won't write? You can actually
I
discipline?
can't say that.
Yeah.
You know, my brain sometimes I have a problem controlling, but I need to get away anyway. You know, just to be in a different environment without the music business and without that whole thing.
How would you judge your own evolution? And I asked that question, like, what has stayed the same about you since the very beginning, you know, before you became as well known as you are, and what has changed the most about you in that same... Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I know, I just like, I gotta think of these new ones.
Draw that out from.
Because I've done 2,000 interviews with you, I said, I gotta think of something I haven't asked him before.
Well, I think the thing that's really changed me is being a father.
Yeah.
That more than my career in a way. I often, even when I write, I often think one day this little person will be looking through this album and, you know, and he's going to say, what was my dad trying to say here? You know, this is weird, you know. Or, you know, hey, this is cool or whatever, you know. So I have, every artist has an audience in his head, and that audience, an inner audience, which is made up of his mother and his father and very important teacher or whatever it is, and it's like a composite picture. And I think that my son has become a very important part of that audience in my head at the moment. And then of course it's just I think I've changed in that traveling around the world has given me a much bigger perspective. I tend now to place certain of my ideas into a much bigger basket than I did before, and it's good and it's bad.
I know. I mean, sometimes they say ignorance is bliss, and I can sort of understand where that comes from, but we can't stay ignorant. It's great to have you in the studio. We're going to play another video. I'm going to translate a little more. We're going to invite people to go out and see your show tonight.
Okay.
And I'm going to check and see that, make sure there are no tapes left.
Okay, you
right?
better check.
I swear to God, I'm checking on that. I heard that sound check was very short today. I'm just teasing. It's great to have you here in the studio. Johnny Clegg de la formation Johnny Clegg and celui. Ne manquez pas son spectacle ce soir au théâtre Saint-Denis. Bien sûr, on parle du fait que son album a connu énormément de succès. Puis j'ai dit, Johnny, il y a quelque chose de bizarre. Je me suis demandé, c'est peut-être pas une question originale, mais en fin de compte, tu danses et tu bouges énormément sur scène. Et je me suis dit, comment ça se fait que tu n'as pas décidé de faire du lip-sync? Ça se fait tellement bien aujourd'hui. Il peut me laisser savoir quelque chose qui est fort intéressant. Je ne savais pas ça du tout. Il m'a dit que en Afrique du Sud, si on chante, si on fait du lip-sync sur scène et le public est au courant que vous êtes en train de faire du lip-sync, eh bien, vous risquez de vous faire tuer carrément avec des pierres, des bouteilles, etc. Donc, ça se fait pas. C'est hors de question. Alors, personne qui travaille là-bas considère même de faire du lip-sync. Effectivement, je demande, qu'est-ce que tu penses de ce scandale présentement avec tout le lip-sync, etc. Il n'a aucun pitié pour des artistes qui se sont fait prendre avec ça. Il dit que pour lui, si on va chanter et on va danser, on va chanter en direct et on doit ça à son public. Et quand même, il faut développer ce genre de technique. Il faut vraiment comprendre la façon de respirer et apprendre à respirer comme il faut. Mais c'est possible de le faire. Oui, on peut chanter et on peut danser en même temps. On parle du fait également qu'il est présentement en tournée. Ça fait déjà 9 mois. C'est une tournée assez incroyable quand on y pense. Et puis on sait bien qu'il a fait également la première partie pour Tracy Chapman entre autres. Il lui reste 2 ou 3 spectacles, c'est tout. Il retourne pour passer 5 mois avec sa famille, 5 mois très attendus. Et bien sûr, pour lui, la chose, je lui ai demandé qu'est-ce qui a changé depuis le début le plus pour toi et qu'est-ce qui est resté pareil. Quand même, son but est toujours pareil, c'est de parler des problèmes qui existent, etc. Mais ce qui a changé pour lui, plus que sa carrière, c'est d'avoir eu un enfant. Il pense souvent à son garçon qui va peut-être voir des albums de son père dans une vingtaine d'années. Il va se dire aussi, qu'est-ce que mon père était en train de dire ici, je comprends pas. Ou peut-être, hey, mais c'est bien cool cette chanson, j'apprécie bien le message que mon père a mis. Alors pour lui, ça c'est très important et ça reste dans sa tête même quand il écrit. Il espère pouvoir aller en vacances avec sa famille, c'est-à-dire à la plage, prendre du soleil, etc. Mais il m'a dit qu'il ne peut pas nous promettre qu'il ne va pas écrire pendant cette période. Il ne sait pas. Des fois, oui, il va être inspiré à écrire, peut-être pas. Mais c'est vraiment de rester avec sa famille pour un bon petit bout de temps, puis c'est très important pour lui. Alors on va entendre une autre pièce de Johnny Clegg. C'est extrait de l'album Shadow Man. C'est une chanson que j'aime énormément. N'oubliez pas son spectacle ce soir au théâtre Saint-Denis à ne pas manquer. Take My Heart Away. Johnny Clegg de la formation Johnny Clegg and celui, ici même à Musique Plus.